in marriage, there are things that we think maybe we got it. We have everything under control. Like I am the one who's like, okay, we gotta have things a certain way, and my husband is kind of like, you just trust the process and everything else. So when I want you to share from what you know so far about us, what is more important in the communication of husband and wife for things to work better? Like you mentioned last time that, you said you are not so good at taking medication, but I am the one to push. So what is important between your husband and wife in communication to be able to function well?
It is this year to feel. If I cannot feel you, and if you cannot feel me, marriage begins to suffer. In other words, it's not really about what wrong I do or what wrong thing you do, but it is about, do I feel you in your joyful time? Do I feel you in your sad moments? Do you feel me in my joyful time? Do you feel me in my difficult times? Why? It's because you should be able to always feel each other so that you can condition each other.
Right.
And I think the number one thing that in marriage, if you do not guard against is, if you do not guard against making each other angry, the word anger and angry, you are bound to always live this life of whereby there are pending issues. So my most enjoyable thing to do is to make sure you are always happy. Not just happy, but that I can be able to say things of love, and I can fully receive something that is the same way within you. For instance, I think one of the I'm a mechanic by trade, right? So we fix cars not by seeing the broken thing. We fix cars by, especially these days, we're talking about the operational part of a vehicle, the center of the operation of a vehicle, okay? Cars these days are operating on what you call sensors. Sensors, right? The whole human body operates on sensors. God put sensors in us way before cars and TVs, phones and all this. And these sensors are, when you have a certain kind of illness in your body, you have a headache because something picked the signal of pain. And so the solution is not for you to fix the headache, but it's to find what is causing the signal to be picked. Amen. So now, when I come to you, sweetheart, and say, honey, I love you, what is your joyful answer to me?
I love you too.
You see. So now, listen to this. Did you see my wife when she said, I love you too? That can be missing when she's not happy. So anyway, when we work on cars, we use what you call diagnostic scanners. Diagnostic scanners these are equipments that we use. We plug into the car, and that scanner will go communicate with the computer of the car. The computer of the car collects data from every sensor in that vehicle. Whether it is the cooling system, you can be able to tell the temperature of that engine. Hey, listen, the diagnostic scanner of yourselves is married couples is the love, your heart. I should be able to know what temperature my wife is running at in our relationship. I should be able to tell what kind of time my wife is going through. I should be able to tell always what my wife will be perceiving. And the most dangerous thing we do, especially men, is you ignore certain pending codes. For instance, you remember, sweetheart, when I said I love you, and when I said I love you, I asked you, I said, sweetheart, if I say I love you, what do you say?
I love you too.
You love me too. So I know from the beginning the way my wife answered me or answers me when I tell her I love you. I know in my heart that when I say to my wife I love you, if she's loving me that time, and if love is existing and there are no pending codes, I know how she answers me. Sometimes my wife will say this to me, I love you, my man. You know, it kicks me. I feel it. I know she really loves me, and this is a code that we use for each other as we love each other. But when let's say you say to your wife, sweetheart, I love you, and she stumbles to answer you back like I love you.
Okay.
One, okay? Or let's say if she says thank you. if your wife, if you say to your wife, sweetheart, I love you, and she says thank you, you are on the edge in your relationship. Totally speaking, yes, you are on the edge. There's something that has pushed you all the way to the cliff, and she's on the edge. And I think what for me, I'm speaking for me as a man and as a husband to my wife, is I used to ignore those things. I used to ignore those responses coming from my wife. And the more I ignored them, there was a time when I came home, and when I got home, my wife and kids were gone. It takes a lot of codes for women to abandon marriage. It does. For men can take a very little thing and he's gone. But for women, it takes a lot for them to leave marriage. And this, I'm not saying this is in all circumstances. There can be some circumstances of whereby something just major happened and to lead to separation or just leaving, departing out of marriage. But I'm speaking about when you love each other and when you are working hard to stay married together. I think one of the things that I've learned with my wife is that I am the one. This is what God told me and taught me. God taught me that I'm the one who should manage my wife. I'm the one who should always look at how can we make this better. What is my wife needing? My wife, I look at her as this flower that it keeps blooming and blooming. And when you see the flowers not blooming as they should be, what do? You water it. You find out why this flower is not blooming, because she's your wife. The spirit of concern is needed in us as men towards our wives, and I feel it took me some time to have that concern, and to be able to really understand that when I have that concern, my wife can be a happy wife in the home, and and my children too. I'll tell you one of the funny things I think that used to make make me change the love that was flowing from my wife is I could have spent the day working or somewhere, and when I come home, as soon as I open the door, and that time our kids were very young, little. I hope you remember that time, sweetheart. And as soon as I open the house, there are toys everywhere. The house is, I mean, it's almost like a tornado went by. and, and because I don't want to reach to my wife, because I'm afraid of how she's going to respond to me, so I go after the kids. And so I'll go like, Joshua, Millie, why are you guys having all these toys like this? Can't you do this and this and this and this? Let's be honest with each other, right? When we speak about children, one mistake I think that I continue to do for some time or for a long time was I never learned that if I make the children unhappy, or if I anger my children, or if I cause them to be bitter, it trails to my wife. And when it comes to my wife, however the children are feeling will impact my wife, and it's going to impact your marriage. And it took me so long to learn that. So I remember, for me to stop doing that, God had to teach me. He showed me who I was when I was little. And so, and then my wife one day came to me and she said, Daddy, you came when the children were happy and we were all happy. And now look, you just destroyed all the joy we had. And of course, I don't even think I answered you well that time, because that time I was a real, I don't know, I can't even describe who I was, but I answered in such a way that made my wife just walk off. I can still see that picture that time. Then, man, when God transforms you, I then I'm now at this point where when I come home and I see, even when my kids are grown up like this, and when I see things are not in their places and stuff like that, and my wife is this woman who will not go to sleep. She will not come to bed if the whole house is not clean. And so I'll go like, sweetheart, the house ain't gonna run away. We will always have this house. Come on, let's go and rest. Or even if we were watching TV, I'll go in the kitchen and say, sweetheart, come on, leave the dishes. This plate will always be here. Come on, let's sit and enjoy together. And of course, if I'm not tired, I will help my wife do the dishes together, which during this quarantine period has been a blessing. I think every time I stand by the sink with you, sweetheart, it's one of the best times I have with you. Mm-hmm. And I think the most important time I love every morning to have is to fix the bed with you. If when I'm having breakfast, if in the house it becomes so quiet, I want to run to the bedroom and help my wife fix the bed. My old me, I used to get mad when the bed is not fixed, till God assigned me through my father. I had a dream. God had to make me use my dad. I had a dream when my dad came. God was speaking to me and my dad, and God showed me our bed, and it was not fixed. And when I saw it, and my dad looked at at our bed, my dad said, "Oh, don't worry, I have something for him." And I remember my dad walking to me, and he put something in my mouth. I swallowed it. I felt it. This is so true. And when I woke up the next morning, I even shared it with my wife. I said, "Sweetheart, Dad wants God, and Dad wants us to fix our bed every morning."
And let me interject on that. And
Yes.
I can, to be honest, he never leaves the house without doing the bed. And he doesn't call me to do it.
No.
Most of the time, he will go do it himself. And sometimes, and I'd gotten into the habit of having the bed done all the time, such that the days that he has to leave in a hurry, or a client calls him and he has to leave right away, and you're like, "Honey, you, today you're gonna have to do your bed by yourself. I'm so sorry," and you apologize. "Well, I got it." I can tell you, I have to confess, sometimes I would do the bed when he's about to come home. That's how bad it gets. And then one time I just slipped my tongue and I told him that, "You know what, sometimes this bed will be like this until you're about to come." So he never leaves the house without the bed being done. So that's a blessing that I have on that part. But that's also part of working together as a couple. And we're going to talk about this in the next session as well, about the relationship between a husband and wife. I know we talked about the kids, but that's going to come in later, because we want us to get to the understanding of how we can be better in our marriages. Do we have a perfect marriage? Is there anything like a perfect marriage?
There is, I believe there is a perfect marriage when love continues to exist.
That's what makes it
I
perfect.
call that a perfect marriage. When love continues to exist between the two of you, it's called perfect marriage. Any other things that happens, they are false. That's why we're speaking about use a scanner to pull the codes. When your wife is reading a code of there's something going on and she wants you to resolve it, we can't call that that's not a perfect marriage. We call that there's a pending code that needs to be fixed. But all these things, if they can happen in your relationship, but love doesn't diminish, if you practice how to maintain love, to maintain it. In other words, your love is always there. That is the same. Okay, we can ask the same question as, do we have perfect love for God? Because anyone who has perfect love for God will never fail. You'll be like a Jonah, being in the womb of a fish, and and then you remember to pray, and you're trusting that He will answer you. You are in the deeps. You are way in the deeps of darkness, but because you have perfect love and perfect, you have a perfect Father for you, you will remember Him.
But it's so